Live.
Yep.
Good morning, Diane's Kitchen. Welcome. Today we've got somebody very interesting you're going to really enjoy. A voice for right now, a voice for what we're going through, a voice for God. First of all, we'd like to thank once again our sponsors. We've got three great sponsors. Matt's Fitness Centers, they're ready. All they are waiting for is the word, and they are back and running, all clean, all painted, all beautiful. Don't forget the lake steam. If you're thinking maybe of moving, of selling, of buying, or maybe you've just got some oddball questions about real estate, give them a call. They're at Edina Realty in Spooner. And if you're having surgery on any part of your person that's going to need physical therapy, Greenfield Physical Therapy is only taking post-surgical patients. So they are also in Spooner. Give them a call and arrange something. They are marvelous people, and they've made all the preparations for the virus. They've done all the things that need to be done, so you're perfectly safe going there. Maybe make surgery a little easier for you to know that there's a qualified and really good team waiting for you. Somebody else who's waiting for you is Brian Cole. He's a friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. And we've had a lot of fun together. His life has been amazing. I have never hung out with an ex-con before. And the first time I interviewed him was probably, Brian, 3 years ago?
That's about 2 or 3 years ago.
We met at a restaurant, and I had seen this guy, with the tattoos and the leather and the do-rag on his head, and I thought, I bet he shows up in like khakis and a polo shirt. No, he didn't. He showed up with all of what made him him. We met at a restaurant between Drummond and Shell Lake, and it was quite a shock when he walked in. The entire restaurant kind of looked up, and I don't know if it was fear and trembling, but then when he came over and sat next to me, they really had a hard time with that, trying to figure out, okay, what in the world is going on? Because people know me, and these aren't the people that I hang with. But I liked Brian instantly. Brian, good morning.
Good morning.
Your life.
This is probably the first time you've not seen me in leathers and a do-rag.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It was a surprise this morning.
Ta-da! Sure. Make me look bad. Anyway, when I heard his story, I was absolutely amazed. I'm sure he's getting almost tired of saying his story over and over and over again. But Brian, just make it really short. From age, 10?
10. Yeah, well, I can give you the 1-minute version, and that
Good.
is, at the age of 10, really is when the bad parts of my life started, between bullying and in school and stuff, and my dad being abusive mentally and physically, and just all the other factors that some kids go through a little more than others. And I made a choice to deal with that in a bad way, and got involved with some older kids, which eventually led to cigarettes and marijuana and pornography and all this other stuff. And from that point on, for the next 33 years of my life, I spent 27 of those years in prison. Everything from petty theft and petty drug charges to first-degree attempted murder, and 25 years as a drug addict. The last drug of choice was methamphetamine, which almost took my life on 3 occasions. The pornography, the cutting and self-mutilation, all the other stuff that goes with the sadistic, chaotic life. And in 2009, was arrested for hopefully the last time. Because I was running a drug house. I got married to my current wife, Marcia, 6 months prior to that, and turned her on to meth and almost destroyed her life and the life of her son. And I ended up getting involved with a drug program in the county jail. I knew I had a problem. I was 44 years old, looking at probably spending the rest of my life in prison, and all I knew was my life was a mess. I was that prodigal son where I had finally come to myself. I didn't come to Jesus, didn't believe in Jesus, hated Christianity, didn't believe in the Bible, none of that. I just knew I had a problem. I was going to self-help myself out of the problem, and ended up being a faith-based drug program. And long story, but you had to have a Bible to do the homework. And, the Lord said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And I was reading truth, and it eventually set me free on January 22nd, 2009. And so I've been, was in 2009. I've been 11 years now. I've been in Christ as of 2009, and 10 years this coming June 1st. I was released from prison in 2010, and so coming up on 10-year anniversary. My birthday is coming up in 8 more days, and this will be yet another big testimony, because this birthday I'll be 55 years old, and it will be the first time in my life I can say that I have not spent more time in prison than on the streets. I'll have 1 more year out of prison than I did living on the streets. So praise God for that.
It is just mind-boggling to me that you have been and you have stayed down at the bottom of the barrel for so many years, never looking up, never thinking there was a credible up to look to, going around and around and around, trying the same thing, doing it over and over and over. I don't know, expecting different results. You got deeper and deeper, and I think that's where it gives you this amazing edge for people who are into whatever, maybe just starting down the road, and who knows how deep they're going to go. But you're living proof that this doesn't have to be your life. This is not going to fill you. If anybody can say, I've been there, I've done that, it was stupid, and there's an answer, that would be you.
Yeah, there's definitely credibility to it, going through a lot of, being forced into a lot of drug programs and other kinds of things in life. You ain't trying to hear that stuff from these counselors, these paid counselors that have never experienced that kind of life. It's like, what do you know about me? What can you do for me? And it's, it's hard enough even as it is now, because of course I deal with a lot of people that are hurting or in pain or suicidal or depressed or hopeless or whatever it is. And even if somebody went through the exact same thing that I did, I still wouldn't understand what they're going through, because we still all deal with things differently. But I can at least say, I've been there, I've done that, and here's what I did. Here's how I handled it. And all I know is when it comes down to it, I don't shove Jesus down people's throats. But I know the answer. And eventually that answer is going to come out. But if I can at least get that relationship built with somebody and allow them to have permission to speak life into them, then it'll come to that. In the meantime, I just want to be there for people, for somebody even just to have somebody to vent to, because I know the value of venting, even after being born again for a year after I got out of prison. The Holy Spirit had a lot of work to do on me. And if it wasn't for surrounding myself with good, hardcore Christian men who cared about, gave a crap about me, and loved me for who I was and didn't judge me from my past, I would have been in prison 3 more times if it wasn't for them and having someone just to go to and snap with and just vent to. I didn't even need them to speak to me. I just needed to have somebody I trusted to go off, and until I calmed down and started listening to reason finally. But, we get into these situations in life, man, and if we live that kind of a lifestyle of criminal thinking and just living a chaotic life, we don't know nothing about reason. The self-talk talks us right into doing what we want to do. And if that's all you've ever done and that's all you've ever known, then it's hard to not and do that anymore without these men and women surrounding us and being that voice of reason for us. But first, you got to spew. You got to get it out of you to be able to calm down and have someone speak life into you.
I agree. And, it's so difficult for so many people because we're instant judges. I mean, just look on Facebook. Now people can be verbally judging because they're hiding behind a screen. Being from Chicago, one of the things that I noticed that people up here in northern Wisconsin did not do was give you the 1 second look. In 1 second, people in big cities take you from head to toe and judge you. Holy cow, just see the shoes that they're wearing. I can't believe it. Nobody wears those shoes. You are judged instantly. Nothing is said, but you're judged. Here, it's wonderful. You can wear purple socks, and people think, what a great idea. I bet those are nice and warm. But to find people like you did that you could vent to, because, I would imagine your venting would be totally different from most people's venting, because you come from a completely different world, and to be able to hear that stuff and deal with it and love you must have been difficult for those people.
It had to be, because like you say, coming where I came from, my venting, and I was only a year or so in the faith, man, and the Holy Spirit still had a lot of work to do in me, and my mouth at venting time, my mouth was foul. And even for someone like you to be able to come to someone like you, and what would it be like if someone just sat down and just started snapping about wanting to shoot somebody, and F-bombs coming out of his mouth and all this and that.
I think I'd say, check please, and leave.
Yeah. But that's what we need. And for some, like, I have some of these people come around me all the time, man, and just to talk, and they'll throw an F-bomb out or whatever, and then I'm sorry, I didn't. No, don't be sorry, man. You just be you. Say what you want. Don't change yourself because of me, man. That doesn't hurt my feelings. I don't want you to be somebody else when you're talking to me. I want you to be who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because I think we get used to playing the game.
Yeah.
And God can't work with us when we're playing games.
For sure.
One person
life is hard.
Yeah, one person I really admire is your wife.
Oh.
I mean, that woman is amazing. It's absolutely, she really loves you.
And I would not be where I am today because of a lot of people, but my wife, I wouldn't be able to do the things I do without her. She just such a support, a huge support in my life. There was one time I remember she came out and told me that she kind of felt left out of place, because I was always out on the road speaking, and she was kind of known as, Brian Cole's wife,
Sure.
And isn't he the speaker? And hey, is your husband Brian Cole? And she felt kind of just left out because I had all this popularity. And I could understand it a little bit, but you know what? It wasn't really until after we came up here, and she found her niche in life, which was jail ministry and working with hurting people. She is just such a strong support of hurting people, because she's been there, done that too. She's come up from a messed up family and stuff, and
then she met you.
Yeah, and she finally came to me one day and said, "You know what? It doesn't bother me anymore that you're doing that. I found my niche in it." And she tried that. I tried bringing her out a couple times to speak with me, and she understood after that wasn't for her, and she didn't feel comfortable with that. But once she got started going to doing the jail ministry and stuff, she said, I finally found where I belong.
I can relate to her, because I was the sheriff's wife.
Yeah.
That's all I was. Oh, and this is Diane, our sheriff's wife. It's like, well, half of that is right. I guess all of it is right. But, I'm a person too.
Yeah.
But no, I wasn't. I was simply the sheriff's wife. But I mean, for your wife, there was a lot of forgiveness. You turned her on to drugs. You took a woman.
Yeah, and people, here's what's up. Let me tell you this. When I first met my wife, she's a miracle in so many ways.
Yes.
She was a pancreatic cancer survivor. When I first met her, she was just a couple of months, I think, coming out of that pancreatic surgery, and she was messed up. She was always sick, in the fetal position, puking almost all the time. And, when we first got together was for one reason, and that was just sexual relations. We wanted no relationship, none of that stuff. Sure. And it was, for me, in my mindset then, just using and abusing people. She was a notch on my belt. Number one, she was 20 years younger than me. I was a trophy in my life. Yeah. Number two, not only that, but when I was going through her dresser drawers one time, and I found all these pills that she was getting, including Oxycontins, oxycodones, and I'm like, ooh, double bonus, young girl.
Must be love.
And, I ended up marrying her 2 weeks after we met. even though that was not the reason I got with her. But anyway, the only thing she was doing at the time, she was, and I'm not minimizing, she was smoking marijuana to help with some of her pain too. And she had no problem with my lifestyle, and that's why I married her.
Sure.
It's like, I'd leave for days at a time, high on meth, come back, she'd be in the fetal position on the floor, sleeping. I'd leave for another 3 or 4 days, come back, and so she didn't care. That's why I married her.
Right.
But at one point, she kind of got on me a little bit, about 3 months down the road, about my meth use and how much I was using. And I'm sitting here because after she was smoking pot, and I got with her and found all these pills, I got her to start snorting these pills with me. So when she told me that, I'm thinking to myself, well, you bigot, you're sitting here putting pills up your nose and you're telling me I got a meth problem? So I started cutting meth into her pills, and she became a meth addict. And she didn't even know how that happened. A couple of years later, after I was released from prison, there was a divorce in the process. She was divorcing me. There was a no contact order between us while I was in because we were running a drug house and there was a child involved. So there was a no contact. She had no idea the transformation that was going on in me. All she knew is she wasn't going back to that lifestyle. That was her saving thing there. When that happened, she found Jesus. She believed in God before, but she found Jesus during that because of her kid getting taken. So when I got out of prison, found out she was divorcing me, the church I was going to invested in our marriage and sent us to a weekend-long marriage seminar. And then
I bet that was interesting.
Yeah, well, it saved our marriage.
Good.
And then the people I was living with was counseling with us. And at one point during the counseling session, I told her about what I did. And she never knew that before, that I was cutting meth into the pills that she was snorting. And she was so mad at me that she almost went back with the divorce again. Sure. Because with all her health problems that she has, not just the pancreas stuff, but she's got a blood disorder and all this other stuff, it could have killed her.
Sure could.
She was so angry at me.
Yeah.
But here we're coming up on 11 years together now, and I love that woman to death. And I tell you what, God made that woman, I think, just for me, because I think she's the only woman in the world that would tolerate me and my stuff.
I would have to second that. Definitely. I mean, talk about a marriage made in heaven.
Yeah.
Because just your story of your marriage, just your relationship alone is absolutely amazing. But you came from a bitter, vile, evil person who did everything they could to promote Satan, to live for Satan, to be anything he wanted you to be. I think I remember you said that at each stage of your life, you took on different names. Yep. You were into all sorts of Satan's programs. And to see you now as a pastor and a totally different person is, no kidding. If people think God is dead, all they've got to do is look at you. Read some of your Facebook posts. It's just amazing. This is the God we serve, a God of miracles. And you are a miracle. Your marriage is a miracle. It's absolutely wonderful. Tell us about the Oaks Church and where it is and what's going on up there.
Well, the Oaks Church, this August will be our 4th year there. It's crazy, you've lived almost all your life as a believer, how just we sometimes get these pinpoints of seeing parts of the tapestry that God weaves, and we just ain't got no idea.
Not a clue.
Of the weaving he does. But so 3 years before I got called up here, there's a couple in Ashland who are part of the CMA, the Christian Motorcycle Association, and they had found out about me and contacted me one day somehow and asked if I'd be willing to come up and speak at some place or a couple places, and I'm like, always. Ended up being, I think I was up here for a week and spoke in 10 places. I'd never been up here before.
Okay, where were you living at the time?
I was a youth pastor in Stanley, Wisconsin.
And that's where in Wisconsin? Midway, north?
It's about 30 minutes west of Chippewa Falls,
Okay.
towards Cornell on
Okay.
29.
You're looking at Eau Claire area.
Yep, Chippewa Clare up that way.
Okay. And Ashland, that's way up there.
Yeah, it's only about 2 hours, 2.5 hours or something. That's, I do a lot of traveling. That's a short trip for me.
Yeah, I bet.
But anyway, it was cool because it was summer, so I was able to bring my bike up. And
Nice.
so, yeah, I spoke in 10 places, and one of them, I don't know, they somehow knew Chad Weber. Chad was he's the one that planted the church. He was the pastor of the church at the Oaks, and had asked if I'd come. That was one of the spots I spoke at.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, the building we have, it can be kind of big. I mean, we can fit about 100 people in there, but at the time, they had their sanctuary in the entryway of the place, and it was like this little entryway. And the big part of the church was this big clothing store, which was their ministry. And like Tuesdays and Thursdays, it would be open, and people would come in and just take whatever they wanted, clothes, shoes, stuff like that. So it was in this little thing, and I think they had around 15 people or so come. And the day I came in and spoke, they had people rolled out the doors, which is usually the case when you have a guest speaker coming. And so that was my first time meeting Chad. Spoke there, and one of the other places I spoke at was called Respawn Gaming Ministry in Ashland, and that's where they own this big house, 2-story house, and the whole basement is all video games with couches and stuff, and upstairs they play card games and all these other kinds of games, and it's basically an avenue for kids. It's right over next to the school in Ashland, and it's an avenue for kids to come and
Great.
them in, and eventually they hear the gospel, and the students themselves do the Bible studies and stuff there, and I think they're open on Mondays and Fridays or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he asked if I would speak there to the youth, and I did, and I remember we ended up baptizing one guy in bathtub in that house that night. Speaking, that was really cool. So that was my first time I met Chad and spoke up here. So fast forward about 2.5, 3 years later, and I get a message from Chad again. He said, "Would you be willing to come back to the Oaks and speak?" And I'm like, "By all means."
Yeah.
And after I said that, my phone started dinging, and he was messaging me and saying, "Hey, would you and your wife be in prayer about coming up here and pastoring the Oaks Church?"
What was your immediate response? Pastoring?
My immediate response was weird because up to that point, I had been in full-time ministry since 2012. I had been speaking full-time on the road since just a few months after I was released in 2010. And I've had opportunities to pastor. People have asked me to pastor before, and I automatically said no.
Right.
After my experiences with the churches I was going to and the churches I spoke at, there was no way you were going to sucker me into being a pastor of a church, man. It's hard enough dealing with kids as a youth pastor. I don't need to be working with adults. People always say, how's it going as a pastor? And I keep telling them, well, I can tell you this much, after being a youth pastor for 4.5 years and being a senior pastor of a church after 3 years, is I'd much rather work with students than adults. So my answer was always no. So when he first started messaging me that, it was the first time I didn't say no immediately. And I don't know why that was. And I thought about that. So I talked to my wife. But before I talked to my wife, all these things, the self-talk, right? All these things are going through my head of, well, if this was going to happen, because the Oaks Church wasn't funded by anybody. They only had a few members. And obviously, he said, we don't know how you'll get paid. That's something we'll have to get figured out and all that. But so even with all that, going through my head was, well, they have to figure that out. And this, my boy, my oldest son, he's autistic, and the change is not good, and to change another school wouldn't be good, and my wife ain't going to go for that. And in order to do this, if my wife ain't 100% all in, I ain't going to do this. And so after I talked to my wife, the first thing that happened was the next morning she woke up and she said, "I really did a lot of thinking and praying about this last night, and I just want to let you know that regardless of what decision you make, I am with it 100%.
Wow.
Like, he ain't supposed to say that.
Yeah. Thanks, Marsha.
A lot of, again, the intricacies of the weaving that he does, just so many things happened that told me I was supposed to go forth with this and completely trust God. And I don't know about you, Diane, But in my opinion, in the 11 years I've been a believer, the hardest thing of the Christian walk, in my opinion, is discernment. And
Yes.
discerning what God's will is or my will is, because
Yeah.
I know I have messed up, and every decision I've made in my life is so messed up, and I don't want to do me anymore. I want to do what God wants for me. He's always done me right. And there's times that it's really hard to figure that out. It's really hard to figure out what I want compared to what God wants.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell people, the more time we spend in prayer and in relationship with God, the less we hear from ourselves and those in the outside world. Plus, we always have, I think, the gumption when something like that comes around. We always go to people to either get them on our side one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
So you go to people, well, I got this offer at the church. And
What do you think?
I think I should do this. And,
Mm-hmm.
just to knock that off. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what the body of believers is for. We all got the same spirit.
Exactly.
But we need to hear from him first. And
Exactly.
so many things just transpired that pointed in that direction, said, no, you need to go for this regardless of how much you hate it. And that's the other thing I always tell people is that one way you can know God's will is because it ain't going to be comfortable for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this took me way out of my zone. And let me tell you, after 3.5 years up here, I can see now all the training I've had, all the things I've went through, the conferences and the programs and all this stuff has led up to this point. And don't get me wrong, I still would much rather work with youth. I'd rather be a youth pastor, but I am so blessed up here with the people God has surrounded me with and allowed me to shepherd over. And that's a huge responsibility. And I'm not used to having huge responsibilities in my life. It's hard enough to take care of my own family, let alone people. And just like with the students I was pastoring in Stanley, these people are not my congregation members. They are my family.
Yeah.
And love each one of them dearly. And, there's people that come and go, and there's people that walk into your life and you pour life into them, and they just up and leave one day and whatever. And it hurts just like any family member would hurt you if they decided to spit in your face and walk away. And it crushes my heart. But I tell you what, Diane, I wouldn't trade this for the world.
Amen.
Kind of blessing.
God doesn't say it's going to be easy, but he says you're going to do it and you're going to love it. And you're going, yeah, right, sure. And then you do. But your youth ministry has been phenomenal. Here you are, a pastor of a church, but before this virus hit, you were booked a lot of days at speaking things for kids. You go to high schools within, 100-mile radius and talk to these kids. And you have made such an impression. I mean, if anybody's been following you, they can see from the schools, they can read what these kids have said. They can see how many kids come up to you after you speak and ask all sorts of questions. I mean, you can tell your heart is with kids.
It is out of all the speaking engagements that I do. If I was to only keep one and let the rest go, it would be schools. And even though I can't, speak about God and stuff in the schools, it doesn't matter. Just our kids are so, they're hurting so much today. And these kids are going through more stuff than we could ever imagine in our lifetime as a child. And it's a blessing and it's a curse going to these schools, because it's a blessing to speak to these kids and pour life into these kids and give them wisdom.
Yeah.
The curse is afterwards when these students come up and just their hugs. And we know kids nowadays, they ain't huggy-feely.
No.
The hugs I get and the tears and the stories of pain are just heartbreaking. And, I one of the things I speak on is suicide, and we hand out these Your Story Isn't Over Yet, the Semicolon Project necklaces. And, sometimes I'll go into a school. This was before the Freedom of Religion Foundation went after me. But I at the end of my story, I would talk to the students and say, if you are considering suicide right now, or you have attempted suicide, I want you to come to me one by one, individually, away from the others, and say, I need hope, and I will give you one of these necklaces. And sometimes I get hundreds sometimes, and I don't have enough to give to the students. Let me tell you something, Diane. When I go into these schools, let me get this thing off my screen. When I go into these schools, I start out usually with three questions, and I typically don't get past the second question.
This is what I was hoping you'd bring up, and if you weren't going to, I was going to, because I was so impressed when I was at one of the schools that you were at.
Yeah, and it's startling.
It
really
is.
But I start out by asking the students if they know somebody, either their close immediate family, a close family member, or a close friend who has committed suicide, to stand up. And the average for each school is anywhere from a quarter to a half of the students will stand up because somebody that has. Then I will ask somebody if they have a immediate family member, close family member, or close friend who is currently suicidal, and about as many stand up. And then I'll have them students sit down and have everybody else stand up who hasn't sat down yet. And I'll say, if you have an immediate family member, close family member, or a close friend who is or was a drug addict, an alcoholic, some kind of addiction going on in the household right now, to sit down. And after those two questions right there, there's typically no more than probably, I don't think I've seen any more than 30 students. Even if I'm speaking to 700 kids, there's typically no more than 30 students standing. Usually there's only a dozen or less standing at that time. I don't even need to get to the third question,
right,
which I ask, which is about, if you have a immediate family, close family, or a close friend who is currently in jail or prison on the ankle bracelet, or has been, or is on probation or parole, then usually nobody's standing up anymore. And it's, the whole point I try to get across with that is those are some critical issues to deal with in life for any human being, an adult, let alone a child.
Yeah. And
most of these kids are dealt with the suicide, dealing with the family member, or even their parents who are meth addicts in the house. And man, these kids got their own issues to be looking after. All the bullying and the peer pressure stuff that's going on, and their tests and homework and all their other life stuff. And then they suddenly have this stuff thrown in their face. And it's like, I tell them, how do you deal with this? And this is the problem, because they don't know how. We don't have family systems, family units we used to anymore, because mom and dad's working, or there's only one person in the family. They're a single parent family. They're divorcees, so they're being thrown back and forth between the two or whatever. So how are they learning how to cope and deal with these issues? Well, each other. And they don't know how to deal with this stuff. So what are they learning? Well, they're learning from social media, all this other stuff, but they're not dealing with it. They're not coping with it. And that's why it's getting so bad. But yeah, these stories are so heartbreaking when these kids come up and talk about their hopelessness in life, and their parents, being addicts, and they're having to be the parent in the home now with the other children, and just on and on and on.
It's got to be discouraging for you, because God called you to be a pastor. God called you to himself originally, and God gave you a ministry, and it was growing, and you were going farther, and it was getting more exciting, and there were musical groups, and this was going to be wonderful. And then the virus hit, and everything came to a stop.
Yeah.
Where can you see God in that?
Well, I try to keep in touch as much as I can with our congregation. Mm-hmm. I try to make calls, at least 3 calls a week to each individual, and I have an email list where I email my people a couple times a week and keep them up on what's going on and just reflect on my thoughts. But I don't know, this is just a perfect opportunity for us to focus on 2 things maybe we haven't had the time to before, or refocus, which is the Lord and our families. Man, what a great opportunity. I mean, I'm fortunate in that I get to spend a lot more time than most people with my family, mm-hmm. because I work from home now. And but yeah, this is a great opportunity for us to get with the Lord, man, and get with our families and see what is important in life. It really grieves me the most about this is just all the people that I know that are losing their jobs, getting laid off, losing their businesses.
Yeah.
I think about that stuff myself. It's like, what if I would have lost my job right now? I haven't yet, but what if that would have happened to me? I don't know what we'd do.
Exactly.
The Lord all we got, but we still are human beings and we worry. We're not supposed to worry. Worrying is a sin. I'm a sinner.
Amen.
So, yeah, I don't know what I would do, how I would.
Yeah, and I think that we're not going to see a lot of stuff right now. I think it's still coming, within a month if businesses aren't open or they open with restrictions, or some people were on the cutting edge. I would imagine most businesses are on the cutting edge anyway. That's how they operate. And what do people do without a job that owe rent or whatever? I don't think we've seen this second wave, which is a tsunami, coming behind this. Even if the business is open, this has dealt a huge blow, and I think that it's the blow that we needed. It was the blow of reality that maybe people will start to think, wait a minute, and where is God in all of this? We have to close. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. I miss having ice cream with you. I would like for you to explain to people why you have your picture so often eating ice cream. What's with the ice cream?
Well, between 27 years in prison and being taken away from ice cream, you don't get ice cream a whole lot in prison.
Right.
Plus, when I was in prison, because of the drugs and stuff I used, my teeth were really bad, especially when I started using meth and I was losing my teeth.
Yeah.
So I was getting infections and stuff, and I couldn't really eat ice cream, man, because it was painful. And I love ice cream.
Yeah.
So after all these years of not being able to have ice cream, now I can sit and straight eat ice cream because I got fake teeth and it doesn't hurt. So that's really the reality of it, man. I love ice cream, and I haven't been able to enjoy it most of my life, and now I can enjoy it. So
see, you really need to eat ice cream because it's praising God.
Well, it's one of those. What do they keep calling things now? Businesses, it's an essential part of life.
It's an essential. Yeah.
Jesus, motorcycles and ice cream.
Yeah. What better combination could you possibly want? So tell me. We have listeners this morning from all over New Hampshire, South Carolina, all over the United States. Where can they go? Where can they go to talk to you? Where can they go to see you? Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a website? How do they talk to you more?
Well, that's one of the things I'm a personal person, man. I was an isolator and a hater all my life, and Jesus changed that completely, radically. I'm not a person who comes in and speaks somewhere and just, here I am, here's my story, goodbye, never talk to you again.
Right.
I'm a personal guy, and I put myself out there. I try to, even on my birthday, man, when I get thousands, literally, of birthday wishes, I try to get on every single one and at least say thank you. That's how if I miss somebody, it hurts me.
Yeah.
Because I know how I want to be treated.
Yeah.
And, some people that have had an impact in my life, whether they're authors or, big name pastors that are out on TV land or whatever, and they impacted me, and I'd write them or email them and tell them what an impression they made in my life, and I never hear nothing back. I don't want that to be that other person talking to me. Right. I want them to know I'm approachable. I'm not above anybody else, man.
So how do we approach you?
You can. I do have a Facebook page. If you get on Brian Cole, there's 2 pages. One is my ministry page, and that's one where I'm dressed like you saw me with my arms crossed.
Yes.
All dark and light. So you get on Brian Cole. You can message me there or like my page. I'm also on YouTube. If you look up Brian Cole Testimony, that'll get me to my YouTube page. I have a lot of YouTube videos for both youth and those hurting and stuff. I have a website address, and that is www.setusfree.org. You can get on there, learn about where I'm speaking at. I think you can email me from there. And then I have a email address at setusfree777 at gmail.com. Setusfree777 at gmail.com.
Well, you've opened another door for more people. Hopefully, people will respond.
I hope so.
Learn from you realize there's a lot of life you can waste, totally waste, when you could actually be totally different. Thanks, Brian. I can't wait to see you again. Thanks for being on the show. Like I say, we've had a lot of response. So if anybody wants to talk to Brian, wants to learn more about him, it's all out there.
Amen.
Let him know. Thanks, Brian. And thanks, everybody. And until next...
Brian. Your brother.
That producer. Until next week, for Diane's Kitchen, keep it cooking.